Welcome to the very first press conference for the 4th season of Play More. We've decided to do a few of these throughout the regular season rather than doing the post-battle interviews that we did in the past seasons. So that does mean you will have another one of these after week 6 and yet another after week 8 as we are hopefully preparing for the postseason, but possibly saying goodbye to yet another Play More season. Either way, I'm going to be answering one question before I toss this over to our coach. I have done enough talking this season. It's time for our coach to get into the real spotlight and talk with you guys, but I thought this was an important question to answer. And that question is, what determines whether you will join a certain draft league or not? Why not stick with the same ones or join as many as possible? Really good questions, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have had these same questions for us, but the answer is kind of easy. It really just comes down to time. Pokemon Draft League is not an official esport, even though I'm trying to make Play More an official esports organization. Probably the smallest one out there, but I really want this to feel special, professional, and just be a really fun time overall. So for that reason, we really operate on what is best for Play More rather than what is best for the different leagues. Sure, we could join as many draft leagues as possible, and a lot of them ask us to be a part of it, but if we don't have the time to fully commit, it's just not going to be worth it. And we could also just do one season after another without really a break in between. But I really worry that not only could we get burnt out from that, but it could just make the Play More product feel a lot less special. I really think having a break in between seasons gets everyone excited for the next season. When that draft comes around, it's so great to figure out who we're going to be drafting, get attached to the Pokemon we draft, and get excited to hopefully bring a championship back to the swamp. But really, the most important thing to me is making sure that these draft league seasons are special and that we can really put our best foot forward. So why don't we join more draft leagues or just join the same one season after season? It comes down to time and hopefully giving you guys the best Play More product. Speaking of best product, there is a limited edition Bubby plush in the Play More store. Play-more.store. This is only going to be around for a few weeks to celebrate the PM7 channel hitting 1 million subscribers, and then it will be gone forever. So make sure you pick one up if you haven't already. You can also use code 1million for 10% off this plush or anything else on the store. That's enough from me. It's time to hear from our incredible coach. Have any mons you drafted underperformed at all, and why do you think that is? Do you think it's good planning and counterplay by opponents, or is it just not as good as we thought when it was drafted?
First, I don't really like to determine underperformance for a Pokemon this early in the season. I mean, yeah, we're like a third of the way through the season, but at the same time, it's just like, it's only been 3 battles, and you can only bring 6 Pokemon at a time anyways. I haven't even brought Muck yet, so I mean, like, that's just something to consider there. But for Zamazenta, I'm very happy that we have it, and it's not necessarily underperforming in my eyes. The matchups have just been awful. And additionally, other Pokemon, they might not be underperforming or performing to what people expect when they're a top tier pick, just because they also haven't been the Pokemon I've decided to win with or try to win with in these weeks. You know, it was Maushold in week 1, Clefable or Gyarados in week 2. Week 3, it was looking like it was going to be either Scarf Gyarados or Blastoise more than likely, none of which were ever going to be exactly Zamazenta or Darkrai. Week 3, they could have had a chance to do it. But realistically, it's just matchups from time to time. No one's been underperforming so far. In general, I've been pretty happy and everything's been going with my game plan. It's only if something like really lets me down, like Froslass last season, then that will be underperforming.
Have there been any roster moves that might interest you?
Currently, there aren't any team members I'm looking about switching out, especially not any trades by any means. It's very rarely for a coach to trade with another coach unless they're joining in the middle of the season, taking over for a previous one, and they really just want to get rid of a lot of different Pokemon. But in terms of free agents, I mean, I have one in the back of my brain, like, there, but it's really only if I want to do it for the sake of the matchup. Otherwise, I feel like I can just stick with the Pokemon I have, because, I mean, once it comes to week 6, any transactions are done. Also, if we drop a Pokemon, that's it. I cannot pick it back up or make any changes like that.
Did you even consider the Pecharunt moveset in week 3 as a possibility?
No, I did not consider Defense Curl Pecharunt a set in my prep. No one brought it in my mocks. I mean, I did face some Nightshade variants, so that was no surprise there. But in general, my Zamazenta was able to break through any specific Petra runs in the back, or at least greatly weaken it for other team members. But my opponent did still have Water Shuriken and Mach Punch in the back as well. So, I mean, even if we did get the crit, I think at the end of the day it wasn't going to work, because he was also AV Greninja, which works, but is weird, but it worked for him. So that explains some of the plays he had in that game. Overall, I wish I could revisit a few things in prep, but it is what it is.
After reviewing the first 3 games, what do you need to improve on to make the playoffs and a good run for the championship? And what has gone well that you need to continue to do?
Overall, I think we were doing well to start the season. Game plans have been working properly, which is always kind of how I go about my team building, which is very important. Week 3 might have been a little bit off. Like, I probably should have been Expert Belt over Choice Specs on Darkrai. Gyarados probably could have been a different set as well, but my opponent prepped really well, so it is what it is. I'm not overall too upset about that loss. If a few things rolled in our favor, then it could have been completely different. I'm not even talking about the crits. I'm talking about the fact that he only had a 12% chance to kill Gyarados with that Stone Edge. So between hitting Stone Edge and getting the roll to kill it, it was 10%. So, but in terms of getting to playoffs, I mean, every game is different, every set is different, every season is different when it comes to Draft League. So I'm just as confident as ever, and it's just a new one. So I'm not really worrying too much about losing progression or getting significantly better. I'm just me, and I'm just doing my job. I'm fine with how I play Draft. We also have some questions from our Twitter account. Make sure to go follow us on Play More Esports. It's run by your favorite coach, so I tweet some funny things here and there. What can I say?
Is there any particular reason why we haven't seen John Jr. lately? Are you actively looking for a new assistant coach?
So first, I just want to address the whole assistant coach thing. That was just a very weird rule for GBA in our first season. Not something Playmore initially decided to implement. We just had to go along with it for the GBA. I still have a whole front office that helps me out for building in mocks, which I talk about a lot for my team building. And it's pretty crowded in there, but they give me plenty of mocks to where I have a lot more insight than just my own brain when it comes to team building, matchups, and just the battles as a whole, especially the drafting part as well, which is very crucial. And John Jr. still helps me. He's just not directly in the front office. He's a busy dude. He got a full-time job just like me. And heck, he even has a kid to watch over, so he's being a great dad. So I'm still close with John Jr. There's nothing about that. It's just we don't have necessarily an assistant coach to be showing off during the videos anymore. It might be something we do in the future, but at the very least, just know I have multiple people helping me behind the scenes, which is the other thing. I didn't want to limit myself to one person. More help, the better for my eyes in Draft League.
When prepping for a team, how do you balance the need for coverage on the outside pick against preparing for best possible responses for the biggest threats?
When prepping for a team, you really want to pick and choose your moves wisely along with what the Pokemon are going to do. Part of it, yes, is about predicting what your opponent to bring, because some things are just blatantly terrible in a matchup, and it really takes some extra thinking to make those Pokemon work, for example. However, it's also just what you want that Pokemon to do at the end of the day. If it's not going to be one of your sweepers, then don't try and force a coverage move on it for something that it's not going to outspeed unless it clicks Dragon Dance or whatever it's going to be. Like, have it something be realistic, a situation that is realistic and that can actually happen. So just keeping that in mind and how you want to build around your win con at the end of the day. So if I have something that really needs chip off of a bulky water to help Gyarados win, then I'm going to maybe run Thunder on Darkrai. That way I can just get the highest damage possible against said bulky water, so now Gyarados can win for the rest of the game. Probably not the best comparison there for an example, but it's just a line of how you just want to build around your win conditions or what you think is just the most important for you to prep for. It's very difficult at the end of the day to absolutely be able to sweep everything on a team or be able to check everything on a team. You have to use your pieces wisely, and then as the game changes throughout, you have to be able to adapt your game plan and find that win con towards the end of the game.
In regards to type coverage, how do you go about choosing which types to have on a team and which types you can go without?
In regards to type coverage for a draft, really there's a few like very key typings, and then the rest are kind of up to you of what you really want. Fairy and Steel are the most important at the end of the day. Now there's a lot of talk about Dragon, Fairy, Steel, and Dragon types are still very strong and very good, but if you cannot pick a good Dragon, don't pick one. There's literally no reason other than that. You can find other resistances that Dragon gets. Otherwise, I really just see Dragon as an offensive typing. That's just how it is for me at the end of the day, because most of the good Dragons anyways are offensive ones. Very rarely can they be defensive variants. So like the extra resistances and everything you get with Dragon really aren't that big. It's not like you're missing out on immunity or anything like that. Fire, Water, Grass cores are good. You just want to be cautious of what grass type you get, because there are a lot of bad ones. And specifically, if you're getting a grass that's grass poison or neutral to ground anyway, that's not great. If you get a grass type, you want it to be a ground resist. And you just have to keep in mind of like your resistances overall. So yes, I have a steel type in Zamazenta, but I should not get Toxicroak or a Alolan Muck, for example, because my steel type doesn't resist fairy. I don't want my poison to not resist fairy as well. Otherwise, I'm just tremendously weak to fairy, and I have to rely on a fire type to come in. And if they have coverage like a Namarus or something like that, then it can get a little bit hairy. So at the end of the day, you're really just trying to look at, okay, what typing am I weak to overall? A lot of strong instances can be fairy spam, ground spam, and flying spam. Those three tend to be the strongest in Draft League formats, so if you're able to make sure you have those in check, it's a little bit easier. But most important typings, we'll just say the two cores, Dragon, Fury, Steel, Fire, Water, Grass, and then a ground type, 100%. You need to have an electric immunity, that goes without saying. Ideally, it's always good for that ground type to have access to Stealth Rocks or Spikes as well. And then it's not as crucial as it was in the past, but I still think it's pretty important to have a dark type, just so you can't lose to Mono Psychic, because there's a lot of those Pokemon that can like Cosmic Power, Iron Defense, and just be pure stored power, no other move. You never really want to give an option for your opponent to do that. And then lastly, a grounded poison type, not ground type with poison type. A poison type that is physically touching the ground and can absorb T-Spikes. That's always very good at the end of the day, just so you don't have to rely on your hazard removal. Those are basically all the necessary typings you need. It is good to have a ground immunity as well. Whether or not that's a flying type or a levitate, that's up to you. I always just kind of recommend to not rely on two levitate Pokemon, because then one Molt Breaker Pokemon, specifically Excadrill, is going to ruin your day.
Will there be a public kill board for the team?
Well, we do have a kill board for the entire team. I tweeted out recently on Twitter, another reason to follow us. But we're also going to have in the description of every video moving forward, including this one, so you can check it down in the description below. Just to get a reminder of how we did in the past, check our records from previous seasons and the MVPs. Spoiler, Roaring Moon is the GOAT, but also allowing Terra on that is insane. So now you're going to be able to see how the season's going, not only for the Mudkip division, but for the future of the franchise, and compare it to the history as well.
What's your favorite Pokemon from all of the draft teams from last year to now?
My favorite Pokemon from the previous teams to now. Ooh. Dude, I want to say Roaring Moon, as corny as it is, because it is the kill leader, but that's really only because it was broken with Terra. If I look outside of Terra, my favorite might have been Glastrier. It might be Glastrier. That thing with Terra was very sick, and even though it got robbed of a few kills and could have done more in general, I was very happy with its performance. In a league where it's just like low tier Terra and below, Glastrier is an insane pickup. I really hope some other people start using it, because that thing is very strong and can eat hits for days.
Do you ever watch game footage of your opponent's prior matches in preparation for your matchup?
So I do actually watch some game footage, specifically now in the Mudkip division. I do watch parties over on my channel, typically every Saturday night after the videos go live. We break down the Play More video so you guys can get my thoughts throughout the entire battle, what I was thinking and how it was going, along with some more information on my prep. And then we also pull up the other battles throughout the division that happened that week. And we can just see how they're performing overall, how their teams are looking, and get some information. So that is how I try and get some more information on my opponents, but at the same time, you guys can see everything going on in the league and just know how goated your Play More team is compared to everyone else.
What is your advice to people who want to start in a draft league?
If you're just starting in draft league, there's two main pieces of advice I can give. One, just join as many Discords as possible. There are always people promoting different leagues in their promotional channels, to where you can find them, put in a request to join. Maybe it's as easy as just joining the Discord if they're only looking for people and not necessarily qualifications or applications, whatever. Join as many you can and learn as quickly as you can. That's all it really comes down to. And then once you start meeting more people, you should be able to just get a more broader idea of how people build, how you can potentially build and play, what good drafts look like, what bad drafts look like, how you can mix up your teams from every season, what Pokemon you want to try out next season, because maybe it was a kill leader in this season, or you got maybe you got swept by something and you really want to use it now. So that's a key thing. Just try out as many as you can, meet new people, make sure it's the right crowd though. Don't give in to with some crazy people. There's some crazy people. But then other than that, just play the ladder, man. Play this Pokemon Showdown ladder. Whether it's OU, random battles, or anything, it's very important for you to just get a greater concept of how to play out the entire battle. If, say, your game plan goes downhill, you started getting hacked out of the battle, whatever it is, you just need to be able to adapt and change accordingly. And even though team building is very different from the ladder or VGC compared to draft, because you're only limiting it to a certain amount of Pokemon compared to the spectrum of the potential meta, it is just another way for you to at least play counter meta if you want to on the ladder, and that way you're still getting a sense of like draft building if you really would like to do that. So there's plenty of opportunities there. And then I guess if I just want to round it out to 3, just watch plenty of content, specifically me. Like and subscribe for Play More.
What's the most demanding thing about being a draft league coach?
The most demanding thing about being a draft league coach is everyone just calling you handsome in the comments. Like, it's really distracting, and it's just like, I just want to get to the battle, guys. I don't want to talk about how good looking I am and bald and... Oh, wait, you mean being a draft coach in general, not just the Play More draft league coach. So for that case, it's scheduling with people. It's like, it's something that's so needed for every battle, because obviously otherwise you're not going to have a battle. But the thing is, it's just life happens. So like, you guys can plan for a time, you feel all prepared. Something comes up for your opponent or yourself, it has to get delayed, whether or not you're allowed an extension by the admin of the league, because there are due dates for these battles. You know, maybe you feel a little iced out now, not as prepared, something of the sort. Or worst case, in my opinion, completely different time zones with people that are not flexible. So like US to Australia, or even like West Coast to Europe, for example. Like, it can get a little tough in those situations because, I mean, you guys just want to play the game at the end of the day, but people have lives and they can get busy, man, because, I mean, it'd be nice just to log on, click it, and play the game, but sometimes it requires a little bit more than that.
What got you into competitive Pokemon, and what do you love about it?
So, my buddy showed me Pokemon Showdown probably my junior year of high school, in the second semester or so. We started just doing a lot of random battles over and over throughout our classes. And then I was just getting really back into Pokemon. I stopped after Black and White came out, and then I got back into it during that junior year. It was like right after ORAS came out. So I caught back up, played Black and White 2, played X and Y, and played ORAS. X and Y is one of the worst games in the entire series. And after just finding more Pokemon content to watch and getting back into it, people had certain aspects of competitive battling on their channel, specifically Draft League, and that's how I got in the Draft League as a whole. To be honest, I found Draft League before I found VGC, so that's how I got into it and how I fell in love with it immediately. My very first like full league was APA, the Classic Showdown League, and shoutouts to everyone that knows the APA from when it started finally picking up on Wi-Fi before like Gen 8 and stuff. I was a big part of that league alongside Panther Miticus and Elite Four Dan. I always appreciated meeting them and everything like that. And, you know, just over time, kept playing a lot of draft, kept meeting a lot of people. It's how I became part of the Pokemon community in general. Eventually, I found John. We just played Fortnite at first, and then I started helping him for WBE battle prepping and everything like that. And no one else in the front office was helping him as much as me, and then it kind of just was us two working off one another. And then that led us to doing some battles for TBL, and now we're all the way here to play more. So it's really what brought me here, and at the end of the day, my #1 love for Draft League and competitive Pokemon in general is team building. It's just what makes the game to me. You can be so creative and get rewarded for everything. It is just amazing what you can pull off with Pokemon. And when the gimmicks are not trash like Dynamax, you can use some really cool things as well. I think Terastallization is really great. Some people might disagree, but I think it's really let some Pokemon shine in a different way, which I think is great. And over the years, I've liked and disliked a lot of the changes that's happened with team building. Mainly, Hidden Power sucked. The fact Pokemon can get access to any type coverage is lame. It just shouldn't have ever existed. You might be saying, oh, that's Terastallization, but at least you have to change your whole typing, and it only happens for one Pokemon. And in Draft League, it's also restricted to which Pokemon can do it. And specifically in the Draft Leagues we've played in recently, you're also restricted to 3 types, one of which is your stab anyways, so really not like Hidden Power. Now I'm going on a tangent, but team building, I absolutely love it. It's my favorite part, because the battles can be very intense. I love drafting as well. Everyone loves drafting, let's be clear about that. But team building is just where I like to cook. Get in the kitchen, do some stuff. Fun fact, actually, after every draft, especially with Playmore, just for the sake of content stuff and everything, I go into Showdown with my entire roster. I create a new box, and I start adding multiple sets of Pokemon, and I title the box this season's recipe book. And if I can find heat that I want to use in specific matchups, I go check the recipe book. So team building is always my favorite thing. All right, so if that's all the questions, I'm going to go hop into my week 4 match, if that's cool with y'all.
But that's all the time we have for this press conference. If you have any questions you want us to answer for the next press conference, leave them down below or in the comment section of any of our future battles. And speaking of future battles, week 4, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be exciting. Get ready for this battle, or if it's already here, click. It's going to be fun, I promise.